Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SCRC's Let's Talk Caregiving. I'm your host, Roberto Velasquez, President and CEO of Southern Caregiver Resource Center. And today we have a special guest, Carrie Kennedy. Carrie is a social worker from the Braille Institute. In her role, Carrie at times finds herself assisting family caregivers who are visually impaired. And this is really important topic because a lot of our family caregivers are baby boomers and they're getting older. And we know that a lot of the conditions that relate to visual impairment often occur in older adults. So Carrie, before we get into talking a little bit more about caregiving, tell us a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, and how you interact with visually impaired family caregivers.
Mhm. Absolutely. And thank you again for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. The Braille Institute, we offer free services to individuals in Southern California experiencing vision loss. I've been a social worker for almost 20 years here at the Braille Institute. My title is the Blind and Low Vision Social Worker. I have a counterpart at our Los Angeles office, our Santa Barbara office, and also our San Diego office. Braille Institute, our goal is to support folks in the community experiencing vision loss, any level of vision loss. Oftentimes, folks hear our name, Braille Institute, and immediately think that we only serve the blind community, which is not the case. I will say the majority of our students have some vision, and our goal is to provide them services so they can continue living the best life that they wish to live. We have instructors who specialize in different areas such as orientation and mobility, independent living skills, technology, and our goal is to teach our students new ways of doing things despite their visual impairment. So my role as the blind and low vision social worker, I am often the first contact for our new students. And when I say students, I mean our clients, which are anyone that's been referred from their doctor. Folks can be referred from their primary care physician, from their ophthalmologist, from their optometrist. That doctor referral, it's a very cursory one-page referral. That's all we need to get someone started with our services here. Once that person goes through our intake process, they'll often be routed to me. I will do a phone assessment with them, assess their current needs, explain what services we have that may benefit them. And once they are up and rolling with services with the Braille Institute, I also act as a source of support for them in terms of connecting them with outside resources. So this is where Caregiver Resource Center, for example, becomes really important to a lot of our students. Many of our students are also in a caregiver role. So in addition to providing care for their friends, their families, they're experiencing vision loss. So we can refer to Caregiver Resource Center for added support in the caregiver role, and then we can teach these individuals helpful tips, helpful life skills so they can continue in that role while also working with their visual impairment.
I'm so happy that you're sharing with us all the different support services and how you work with families. And I think it's really important, the students, I should say. I think it's really important because like much of the community, the population, I too was, the Braille Institute is just for people who are blind. And the truth is that as we age, I mean, I wear glasses. My vision has been getting worse. I don't think I need Braille Institute services. However, this is part of normal aging, right? Your vision goes. Sometimes you have difficulty driving older adults with the driving at night, but also people get other conditions that might lead to some vision impairment. I know people who have strokes or a traumatic brain injury. Or even, a brain tumor. They may have physical as well as visual impairment, visual problems. And many of them are either temporary or permanent. But then you have like our population, the family caregivers, which the bulk of our family caregivers, the biggest percentage now are Gen Xers and baby boomers. And we know that as you age, there's certain conditions that really start to become more prominent with age as far as vision impairment. And that includes conditions like macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, even because of your diabetes, right? You could get blurred vision and after the condition has evolved over some time. But these conditions are very common. And in fact, diabetes is one of the biggest challenges in older adults in the United States. So I'm glad to hear that these problems, because when we think of caregiving, we think of the person who's the family caregiver who's taking care of somebody who's ill. And the individual who's ill has multiple conditions. They might have Parkinson's, they might have Alzheimer's, but they also have other complex medical care conditions. And we often forget that the family caregiver also has health problems, especially when they're older.
Absolutely, yes, and that is the piece we see that frequently here amongst our students. They're caring, just an example, they might be caring for their mom at home who's of advanced stage. However, our student is experiencing, as you mentioned, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, a condition which is making their caregiver role very difficult. They're in charge of preparing meals for their family member, for example, but they themselves are having a hard time seeing the microwave buttons. They're having a hard time seeing the dials on the washer and dryer. So that's typically where we have a lot of referrals come to us. Folks start to have a really challenging time with activities of daily living, everything from cooking to personal care, money management. So if you are in a caregiver role and you're providing those services, not only for yourself, but for a family member, suddenly your vision is affecting that. That's going to be very difficult. And that's where hopefully their doctor can refer them here, and then we can refer them to the appropriate instructors here, such as an independent living skills coordinator.
Well, that's fantastic. But I think one of the things that you just mentioned that is really important is that maybe their doctor can refer. I think, with that, I would also say that getting a diagnosis is really important. So you know what is causing your visual impairments. Is it just your normal aging, or is it something much more serious that could maybe be even treated? Right? I mean, I know that you can treat certain conditions, glaucoma, for example. I mean, and there's even rehabilitation and cataracts, for example.
That's
I think
right.
macular degeneration is one of those that is uncurable, but there is treatment for certain types of macular degeneration. So all of that is, I think, really important. So the caregiver, if you're a caregiver and you're starting to experience these things, make sure you're seeing your doctor. Make sure that they're giving you the proper treatment or diagnosis so that then you can take that information and go to like the Braille Institute and then get connected to the services and so forth.
Exactly, absolutely. And that's always what we recommend that folks do, is be open with your doctor about what you're experiencing in terms of your vision loss. As you said, there's age-related vision loss. It doesn't necessarily mean something severe is going on, but the earlier you can have your vision assessed, the better, because then your doctor can prescribe the treatments that are appropriate for your condition, and if needed, refer you to outside resources. I will say, sometimes you need to be really proactive as the patient, and sometimes you might need to ask your doctor to be referred to the Braille Institute. Anyone can be referred here, as long as they have that referral. So if your doctor doesn't necessarily make that recommendation, but maybe you've gone on our website, you think you might benefit from some of our services here, by all means, be proactive. Ask your doctor if they can refer you here. Most healthcare professionals that we come in contact with have no problem with that. And then we can take it from there. For most people, their first stop here is an assessment with our low vision occupational therapist. That's an extremely important appointment. The occupational therapist will do a reading assessment, and he or she can make recommendations for everything from magnification devices to lighting in your home. Um, so lots of little steps that can add up to making things that much easier for you at home.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Carrie. That is so important. The adaptations in the home. I think that is. I mean, we teach that for caregivers who are caring for somebody with some visual, like if they're caring for somebody with visual impairments, or that are impacted because of conditions like Alzheimer's or some other kind of condition that after a while it starts to affect the part of the brain that controls your vision and depth perception and things like that. But for an individual that's also a caregiver and experiencing visual impairment, it's important to do things like maybe restructure your home with big labels,
Mhm.
especially on, like you were talking about, the stove. If you put, like, let's say your cereal in one, always put it in that one spot in the cabinet so that you know where it is. I think even like what we teach is getting rid of clutter, things that
Yes.
don't have a real purpose. They're just decorative, or even throw rugs could be kind of hazardous, which again are techniques that we teach family caregivers when they're caring for somebody. But that is also applies to these types of situations. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And you're hitting on all of our important services and our departments.
Uh,
We have an entire department dedicated to what we call ILS, independent living skills. And students are able to receive one on one interaction with those instructors and be taught those tips and tricks to make activities of living a little bit easier. For example, a lot of our students utilize bump dots, which are raised tactile stickers in the shapes of circles, sometimes squares, that can be put on appliances. So it becomes more that the individual is feeling for the buttons rather than straining their eyes trying to locate the correct button with their vision. The independent living skills instructors can also give a lot of helpful tips for mealtime. For example, if you're setting down a plate of food to someone with a visual impairment, it can be very disorienting for them, right? We all
mm.
want to know what we're eating. And if there's a plate in front of you and if you have a visual impairment, it can be a little disconcerting. A lot of our students will talk about that. So, one of the tips our instructors give is tell your loved one that the plate in front of them is a clock. And let's use mom as an example. Mom, your chicken is at 12 o'clock. Your potatoes are at 3 o'clock. Your salad's at 6 o'clock. So it gives them a visualization of what is in front of them. So that's just an example of some of the tips that our instructors can give to, again, make just some of those everyday tasks that become quite difficult if you have a visual impairment. You also mentioned safety in the home, throw rugs. We have another department, our orientation and mobility department. Those instructors can come out to your home, they can do a safety assessment there in the home. And for our students interested in learning how to use the white mobility cane, they can have lessons to learn how to use the cane. So, all of these tasks that become more difficult with visual impairment, let alone if you are in a caregiver role, Braille Institute can support you through all of these transitions to get you to a point where you feel more confident at home, you feel more comfortable, and if you're caring for someone else, it will show in the care that you're able to provide your loved one if you're feeling more confident in your abilities.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. The more you know your own health, the more you know about the health and condition of the loved one that you care for, the better you are, the more empowered you are as a caregiver to be able to fulfill those roles. And I love that you talk about assistive devices. Even now, I mean, again, as I get older, I find myself turning on the light of my camera when I'm at a restaurant to read the menu because
Mhm.
the lights are down, they're dim. So, I mean, just using my light, and I'm not embarrassed. I just put it out there, and then people ask, "Oh, you need a light?" I go, "Yeah." But if I go out with friends my own age, they all pull
Mhm.
out their camera
Yes.
and their phone and turn on the light. So, little pen lights or phones or things like that are really good devices.
And that's another great point that you bring up. Technology these days is huge. And you use the example of your phone. We have a technology department here. We have technology experts who can teach our students to use their devices in a way that's accessible to them. iPhones, Androids, a lot of these devices that we use every day have a lot of accessibility features built into them. Oftentimes, they just need to be enabled, and our technology experts can help our students learn how to do that. Um, I should mention, in addition to one on one sessions, the Braille Institute, we offer weekly classes. We have 15-week long classes on the iPhone, independent living skills, Braille. So when folks come to us, they have the option to receive instruction individually. Some folks learn better on a one on one basis or in a classroom setting.
That's wonderful, Carrie. And I often am asked by family caregivers, or even our family consultants are asked when, well, that's wonderful. How do I pay for all this stuff? And I know that there's resources out there, and maybe you can explain to our audience what are some of the resources. I mean, does Medicare pay for some of these things? Does Medi-Cal? Does their private insurance? Does the Braille Institute have funding sources to help subsidize or supplement costs for families?
So I'm glad you brought that up. This is probably one of my favorite things that I'm able to share with families. All of our services are completely free of charge. There's no charge for any classes you may enroll in, any one-on-one appointments. We don't bill insurance. You never have to worry about getting a bill from the Braille Institute. Our services are made possible by private donors. So we're very fortunate in the sense that we are able to tell our students and their families that you can come here, you can receive the support that you need, and you don't need to worry about a bill.
That is so wonderful because again, a lot of the families that we work with are either low income or middle income families. And I mean, we don't means test our services. All our services are free as well, but we don't charge. And then they ask, when we're referring them to other sources. So it's wonderful to know that those services are available and are free. So there's no barriers to the family other than get connected, right?
Yes.
There's one other topic that I wanted to talk a little bit about and run it by you and see if you've had any experience with this. Many family caregivers, as caregivers, they're already overwhelmed, right? The constant care, they're doing complex care for the person that they're caring for. It's an emotional roller coaster. I don't know, feelings of helplessness, isolation,
Mm.
depression. It is a real thing as a family caregiver. And then you add starting to have visual impairments, or you already have visual impairments. And that triggers another level of emotions due to the vision loss. How does the Braille Institute help families in that when they are maybe suffering from depression as it maybe as a caregiver, but also because of their vision loss that they're experiencing?
It's a great question, and that's my department, and I will assess for that when I do the initial appointment with our new students. We talk about that. We talk about how they're feeling, if they're receiving any outside support, because it can be a very traumatic loss for our students. Some of our students lose their vision gradually over years, over months. Some lose their vision very suddenly. So we're very open with them about what a traumatic experience it can be. Here at the Braille Institute, we offer peer support groups. So, as a social worker, I think they're immensely important and immensely effective. I facilitate an in-person group here at the Anaheim Center. I also facilitate virtual support groups. My counterparts, the other social workers at the other centers, do the same. So when I initially meet with our students, I'm always listening for folks who may need that additional support and offer them groups. And then we also make referrals to outside agencies. There's other agencies that provide free supportive counseling. And of course, we recommend that our students are always in contact with their medical team if they're experiencing any sort of change with their moods. It's a real issue. It's something that I would say affects most of our students. And so we try to normalize that and let them know that it is absolutely okay to be feeling the way that they're feeling about their vision loss.
Well, that's wonderful to hear because I know at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, a lot of our family members that are caregivers often experience depression, isolation, as I was saying, even anger, agitation, over time. And we also provide counseling services and we provide support groups, and they're connected to a master's level social worker that really understands their needs. And we can even give them respite. We have respite services that through different funding sources where we can give them a break from the caregiving experience. And anyways, I am so thrilled that you joined us here today because, again, it's not that we see a lot of clients right now that are coming to us and they're at the extreme where they're completely blind and they're caregivers, but we do have an aging audience, an aging constituency that we serve. And I'm so happy that there's organizations like the Braille Institute and you who are providing such wonderful services through the Institute to help families really get connected and assess their needs as well. So you're assessing on a different level. We're assessing on them as caregivers, and together we can provide really comprehensive support services free to families who really need it. So thank you so much, Carrie, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll mention for folks who are interested in our services, you can feel free to contact one of our 7 offices: Los Angeles, Anaheim, Laguna Hills, Coachella Valley, Riverside, San Diego, or Santa Barbara for a copy of the doctor referral form. Or if you go to our website, brailleinstitute.org, you can actually access the doctor referral form right from the website. And again, feel free, be your own best advocate and be proactive. Let your doctor know that you'd like to be referred here if you think you could benefit from our services.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much once again for all that wonderful information. It's very useful, and I'm sure our audience is learning a lot, as I am as well. Well, that's all the time we have left for this edition of Let's Talk Caregiving. To hear more of our podcasts, follow us on your favorite podcasting platform or visit our website at scrc.care. I want to thank our special guest, Carrie Kennedy, for joining us today for another important discussion, and our audience for tuning in. If you are providing support to a loved one, you don't have to do this alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. To connect to our programs and services, visit our website at scrc.care or call us at 1-800-827-1008. If you live outside of San Diego and Imperial counties, visit caregivercalifornia.org and connect to the Caregiver Resource Center in your town. If you would like to support our efforts and make a tax-deductible donation, please go to scrc.care and click on the Donate tab. And remember, SCRC is here for you, caring for those who care for others.